Sauerkraut. I'm going to show you how to make sauerkraut. 2 of these. So these are sweetheart cabbages. Quite small because they're organic, so you might need a couple of them. You will need a kilner jar like that, about that big. Once we've irreceptacle what you can get your hand into. Doesn't have to be any bigger than that. Bowl for mashing. Salt. This is raw, fancy, light grey Celtic sea salt, full of minerals and all that jazz. So good quality, proper salt, not bleached or messed around with, and some kind of mashing device. Clean hands as well. You need to wash your hands before you do it. This will become apparent. So first thing to do is to take off a couple of the outside leaves. You need to hold on to these. You will need them in a bit. Again, it will become apparent, but I will keep about 4 of those to one side. It says tearing them. Four of them to one side. Knife, chop off end. So we're going to slice up these. Oh, nearly lost that. Get rid of them. You want to slice this up into sort of, so it's like shredded by the end of it. So I'm just going to try to do that. One. And then I'm going to take those in half, so we release all the ribbons of cabbage. Job's a good one. Then, in said bowl, I'm going to chuck in this, separate it all up. If we've still got some of that thick stuff in the middle, we can get rid of that, which we want the kind of ribbons of cabbage, preferably. That I'm going to put pretty much a whole one in there, and then we'll come to the salt. So we're going to use 3 teaspoons in total. Any more than that and it will just get too salty. So we need enough salt to start pulling water out of the cabbage without having too much that it's going to get too salty. So we're going to start mashing this up now. So we're just going to work salt into the cabbage. And what you're looking to do is, as the salt starts to take effect, you'll start to get water or some brine coming out, or water coming out of the cabbage to create a brine. And you'll notice that the crunch will go out of the cabbage and it'll become flaccid and kind of floppy, which is what we're after. So to start with, I'm just going to work the salt into that cabbage that's in there with my hand. If we've got any big lumps like that, we'll get rid of them because they're not going to help us. So I'm starting to loosen up pretty, and you'll notice the volume starts to go down as well. So we've now got it's starting to shrink down and starting to a little bit of moisture coming out of them. So now I'm going to add the rest of it in. Again, any big lumps, we want to leave them out because they're not going to do what we need them to do. And then I'll do another tablespoon of salt, preferably. Right, so that's 2 cabbages. Salt. Bang that on. Work it in. can do this in the jar, but I find it a lot easier to do it in a bowl. So this process can take a while. Hopefully once we start to get, once it starts to break down, we'll start to get some moisture coming out. So I'm going to put 1 more tablespoon of salt on. So a decent lump of salt in there. That's enough salt. And I'm going to start just seeing if we can start breaking it all down a bit. Go. So you can see it's now floppy and flaccid, and we've not got much crunch left to it. And if you can see, we get this moisture liquid coming out of there, which is what we're after. And that's about ready, I reckon. So from there, in an ideal world now, there'd be enough liquid to cover the cabbage. I might not have enough here, so I might have to add a bit of water to it. But don't need to add any more salt, and I think that's just about ready to go. So, clean kilner jar, chuck this in here. Again, we're going to mash it in here. So the key to it is to get no air in there whatsoever. So we want to tamp it right down using either a rolling pin or your fist. You want to tamp it right down so that you're getting all the air out. So as you can see, from 2 cabbages we're down to less than half full on that jar. Appreciate most of it's on the table, but that's what we're after. So there we go. Any brine that's left in here goes in. And then I'm going to compress it down a bit more with my hand. Hopefully, I'd say we've just about got enough brine so that it's all underwater. That's the goal. I'm going to add a little bit just in case. And that's plenty. So the thing is now we need to make sure that everything's underwater. So we're going to use these to seal it. So we're going to push these down on top to create a bit of a seal over the top. Pushing down again so that the water is over the level of the cabbage. And that's it. So that is that. Seal that. It then goes in a out of direct sunlight in a warmish room or warm room for however long it takes, and you'll know it's ready when we start to see bubbles forming on the outside of the jars, or on the inside walls of the jar, we'll see bubbles forming. You won't necessarily get them rising to the top and it bubbling, but we'll see air bubbles appear, which is obviously the little microbes doing their thing. So once you get sort of a decent amount of bubbles all the way around the outside, it's good to go. You can do the sniff test, so once you start to see bubbles, if you pop the lid and it's starting to smell a little bit sulphurous, then it's good to go. And then you would just put that in jam jars, and it lasts for about a week or so in the fridge, maybe even long, like a couple of weeks in the fridge, and just add it to your veggies or to salads or whatever for some gut healthy bacteria. So there you go, that's how to make sauerkraut. Have a go.